Japan's involvement in World War II started in September 1940, when Japan signed the Tripartite Pact with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, in which they agreed to assist one another should any of them be attacked by a country not already involved in the war. The United States declared war one day later in response to Japan bombing Pearl Harbor. In response to what was thought to be a potential threat, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which allowed Harry L. Stimson, Secretary of War at the time, the power to relocate Japanese Americans to internment camps, even though there had been Japanese immigrants living in America since 1868. This caused large amounts of conflict between the government and the Japanese American population. The purpose of Order 9066 was to take all people of Japanese descent into custody, surround them with troops, isolate them from available land, and return them to their former homes at the close of the war. There was no specific group of Japanese Americans it was directed at, but soon it applied to all Japanese Americans living on the West Coast, of which 120,000 were interned. Of that number, only 2,000 were relocated voluntarily. To help carry out Order 9066, the War Relocation Authority, or WRA, was established on March 18, 1942, and put in charge of relocating Japanese Americans.
The Japanese internment was executed very poorly. For one thing, the WRA had all Japanese Americans living on the West Coast relocated to one of the 10 internment camps, even if they hadn't shown any disloyalty or if they were American citizens, which about 70% were. Strangely, the 150,000 Japanese Americans living on the Hawaiian Islands were not interned, despite the fact that they theoretically posed a bigger threat than those living on the West Coast. In addition to this, none of the Japanese Americans' land, homes, or businesses were protected, so non-Japanese were able to buy their land, homes, and businesses at outrageously low prices. After this stage, things did not get any better for the Japanese Americans. The conditions at the camps were horrible. The barracks were uninsulated and only had bunks and a coal-burning stove. In the summer, temperatures could get up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the winter, temperatures could get below freezing. Because of the dust and sand constantly blowing into the camps, cans were placed over knotholes in the floorboards in a futile attempt to keep dust and sand from getting in the barracks, until linoleum was put in late 1942. The communal latrines did not have any stalls, and the showers had no partitions. Surrounding the camps were barbed wire fences and 8 guard towers with searchlights. Military police patrolled the camps with orders to shoot anyone attempting to escape. These horrible conditions caused conflict within the camps. Despite these horrible conditions, it was the traditional Japanese way to say cooperative and trust that the government knew what was best. The internees had jobs much like people did outside the camps. Professionals were paid $19 per month, skilled workers were paid $16, and unskilled workers were paid $12. The people in the Montessori internment camp also began a free newspaper that covered many different topics. For example, in one edition it says, Phoenix, Arizona, a 28-year-old American-born Japanese who faces charges of writing and distributing propaganda using Japanese Americans of draft age to resist selective service. Although many of the Japanese Americans resisted being relocated, one man named Fred Korematsu managed to take a court case against the United States and to take it to the Supreme Court. Fred Korematsu resisted relocation and because of this was sentenced to 5 years of probation. Korematsu tried to have his conviction and exclusion order appealed, but they were upheld.
However, his appeal went to the Supreme Court, who still upheld it in a 6-3 ruling. This caused a lot of conflict between the judges. According to Justice Hugo Black, the reason for Korematsu's guilt was compulsory exclusion of large groups of citizens from their homes, except under circumstances of direst emergency and peril, is inconsistent with our basic governmental institutions. But when, under conditions of modern warfare, our shores are threatened by hostile forces, the power to protect must be commensurate with the threatened danger. The reason for the other 3 who ruled in favor of Fred Korematsu's appeal was, according to Justice Robert H. Jackson, that Korematsu was born on our soil, of parents born in Japan. The Constitution makes him a citizen of the United States by nativity and a citizen of California by residence. No claim is made that he is not loyal to this country. There is no suggestion that, apart from the matter involved here, he was not law-abiding and well-disposed. Korematsu, however, has been convicted of an act not commonly a crime. It consists merely of being resident in the state whereof he is a citizen near the place where he was born and where all his life he has lived. After the war, Fred Korematsu was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for fighting against the Japanese internment.
To compensate for the crime committed against Japanese Americans, the Civil Liberties Act was made in 1988. This gave $20,000 to surviving Japanese Americans that were interned. However, the money would not go to the family if the former internee had passed away prior to the occurrence of this compromise. Thankfully, the Japanese internment was ended after the close of the war, but the damage was done. Many former internees no longer had homes or businesses to return to because they were bought or foreclosed. It wasn't until 1988 that the compromise to the internment, or the Civil Liberties Act, was made to award $20,000 to the surviving members of the internment, but only those who were actually interned would receive the money. The Japanese internment is considered the most horrible atrocity ever committed by the U.S. Order 9066 was signed to attempt to satisfy those who discriminated against Japanese Americans. This led to conflict between Japanese Americans and the government because of the terrible conditions of the camps. A compromise was not reached until 1988. It is important to remember this awful event so nothing like this ever happens again.